Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to BAInsights. Today, I'm pleased to have three excellent guests with me to talk about career pathways and business analysis. So without further ado, if I could ask my three guests, starting with George, to introduce yourselves, please.
Yeah. Hi, I'm George. I work for Infused Solutions, a specialist tech recruitment agency. I focus on business analyst roles, so anything that does alongside BA as well. I've helped quite a few BAs get into positions and move into sort of more senior positions as well.
Thank you, George. And Helen, would you mind going next?
Yeah, I'm Helen Winter. I've got my own consultancy, Business Bullet. So I've got a background in business analysis. I do more sort of program management these days, but I've got 20 odd years plus experience in business analysis, and I've got a blog and I've got a book all around business analysis.
Brilliant. And make sure we ask you, Helen, and same for George or Soni as well, the name of that book and the blog later as well. So don't leave without mentioning that. Okay. Thank you, Helen. And Soni, over to you.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I'm Soni. I'm a digital business analyst at Vodafone UK. I currently work within the networks team under digital enablement. So my role currently is to drive the end-to-end delivery of digital innovations, so launching new products and solutions within our network development teams to help them optimize, deploy, and create the networks. I've been a BA for about 2 years now. Previous experience was in marketing, so I've had a bit of a shift in a career. But yeah, looking forward to kind of sharing insights. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. And I'm glad to hear three of you represent three slightly different perspectives on the topic of career pathways from a BA perspective as well. So really interested to hear what you've got to say. But let's get the ball started then really by talking about some of the different career pathways that may exist for a business analyst, either into the profession, from business analysis into maybe at different levels of BA, and then from BA outwards. So I wonder, George, if we could start with yourself, if that's all right, please, on that question.
Yeah, I think starting off with pathways into being a business analyst, and obviously I think Soni will be able to vouch for this. It's not always very linear, so you don't always necessarily have to come from a technical background. We see a lot of people coming, as Soni did, from marketing. You see people coming from sales roles as well. I think the way into business analysis is really just exploring your curiosity, having people who are curious to find out what problems are, to find out how they can be solved, and find out sort of who it is that's best to speak to about those problems and the pathways, obviously, to solving those. Once you're in being a BA, I think the skill sets that you get from that point on do really set you up for a variety of roles. Helen, obviously, working in program is a place that we see a lot of BAs move to, just through the similar skill sets that we have there. Obviously, there's a more conventional pathway or more typical pathway going into senior and principal and lead BAs along that side as well. So having BA skill set does set you up for a lot of different positions, and it's how you can utilize those and pivot off those into maybe a next pathway or a next career that you see.
Thank you, George. Helen, do you mind sharing your perspective, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that in my experience, you've got to have a variety of be a certain type of person, I think, to do business analysis. I think there is people don't necessarily report to you, so you've got to be able to get people to engage with you. So you've got to be likable. If you want to get into it, it helps to have like a project perspective. So I encourage anybody that's interested in doing business analysis, if you can get involved in projects or volunteer or shadow a business analyst, that will really help them. I've trained when I've trained trainees before, the biggest thing where they failed was if they don't like not knowing what you're doing each day. So as business analysis is very varied. It can be completely different from project to project. So sometimes I find people that think they want to be a business analyst, and when they realise that projects keep changing, they change their minds. So I think it takes a certain type of person, but if you can kind of look at, if you don't mind that, if you're comfortable with it always changing and never, if you're the type of person that always wants to do the same thing every day, it's probably not for you. But if you like changing and learning new things all the time, then it can be really suitable. So I think if it's a lot of people can get into it, it's just get that experience, shadow, learn as much as you can, and it will really set you up, because it's a really good basis for lots of other careers as well.
Yeah, so to the point you just made there, Helen, I guess for people that aren't particularly comfortable, perhaps like moving around or having that adaptable or quite changing environment, it's quite a good way to get comfortable, because certainly you can't be a BA for long without the environment changing, or your stakeholders changing, or the focus of your analysis changing.
Exactly,
So
and that's it. And that's it. And you've got to be likable, and you've got to be, in my view, not everyone shares the view, but in my view, you've got to be a little bit outgoing, because how do you get people? You've got to get people to give you information. They don't report to you, and it is a skill set to kind of get people to feel comfortable and want to be able to share information with you. So if you've got that type of personality, then I think you'll be much more suited to it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely need to be a people person, I would suggest that, and if you're not, it's probably not the profession for you.
Yeah, I mean, you have got like systems analysis, and you've got data analysis, which might be a little bit more sort of techie, but there are different slants. But I guess it depends on what interests you the most. I suppose that's the other good thing, is if you are more systemsy or data orientated or process, there are slightly different specializations you can go into.
Yeah, we agree. Thank you, Helen. Soni, do you have a perspective on that, please?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I previously mentioned, I've had the non-traditional journey into business analysis. But yeah, just echoing what George said, I've realised being a business analyst doesn't have a linear career pathway. So just going into a bit of my story, I graduated about 5-6 years ago. I did a degree in history, humanities degree, didn't know what I wanted to do out of uni, fell into a career into marketing. I was working for SaaS tech companies, and then I went into financial services. This is where I was doing marketing and managing multiple different projects like a business analyst would. I was essentially gathering requirements for these campaigns, but I didn't know that was requirements gathering at that point. I didn't know what I was technically doing could lead me to be a BA. So I then transitioned into kind of consulting for a tech company within London. And again, I went into this kind of career pivot as such from a marketing executive to a consultant because I wanted a change. I didn't want my career to be so linear. I love change. I love adapting to new environments, new projects, and I just knew that I wanted to try something new. So yeah, managed to get a role as a consultant at a tech company in London. And that's when I really got exposure to being a business analyst. Essentially, the word consultant, you can either be a PMO, you can be project manager, you could be multiple different things. But my kind of project that I fell into was a business analyst. And it was here where I really developed my core. I wouldn't say developed, I think just further nourished the skills that I had already developed in my marketing career, and they eventually accelerated that into a business analyst kind of skill set. So yeah, on this project I learned so much, and it was my first gig and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to properly document requirements gathering, and it was really trying to hone in on the skills I had learned as a marketing executive or marketing manager as well previously to the whole profession. And I think the message that I really want to get across is that you don't need to follow one career path. You can have multiple career paths. And at the moment, I'm working with loads of business analysts that have, previously worked in technical roles or previously have worked in sales, like George mentioned, or have never even done business analysis before. And I think it's all about the soft skills, and that's what's really helped me kind of accelerate my business analyst career. I do think technical skills are very important, but it's those soft skills, like Helen said, it's more about the person that you are. Can you communicate with people? Can you talk to senior stakeholders? Can you translate technical language into more simplified language? And I think that's definitely a key skill that's really helped me develop my business analyst career, and it continues to do so.
Yeah, there's some very points there that resonate for sure. So that's I mean, if I think about my own pathway into business analysis many years ago. Now that was very much about, from moving from being a subject matter expert into the BA role, but it's based around really having relationships with certain individuals, being curious, being happy to sort of get into different levels of detail. And then once I was in, really getting hooked to that point of thinking, this is really going somewhere, and there's plenty of opportunities both within the role and outside should I need to. And I recall at the time, I think there was a sort of understanding, at least on my part, that the natural transition for everybody was you become a BA for a little while, and then when you get better, you become a project manager, and then you work your way up. I'm glad to say that's not my view has changed, and I've been educated on things since. And I'm equally pleased as well that that now there is lots of opportunities to stay within business analysis and really work through different levels of expertise in different domains, different areas of client as well, and even different subcategories of business analysis, if you want to put it that way. So plenty of opportunities. But it also gives you that really nice place to be in to get awareness of some of those other roles, like a program manager or a project manager. And it gives you the ability to think about the sort of skills that you might be able to transfer into those roles as well.
How I got into business analysis originally was that there was a BA, and she said to me, "You've got a good relationship with this project manager. I've got a terrible relationship with him. Can I coach you to do my job so that we can get it done?" And that's how I got into it. So I went along to all her meetings and she coached me, and then I had to do it for her because I had that relationship there and she didn't. She recognized it and she was like, "I just want to get this project done. I can only do it if I've got, I can use your help."
Maybe there's nothing to demonstrate more in that example, Helen, the fact that the personal skills are the thing to have first, because once you've got the right personality, you can learn the more technical skills of business analysis anyway. Yeah.
And there's a lot of help out there, which I think you kind of cover in your other questions.
And I mean, just going to those questions, I mean, how do you think, what's your view on the different levels of experience or qualifications that can help individuals transition into, or perhaps move up the BA ladder, as it were? And I wonder, Helen, if I could start with you, if you don't mind on that one.
Sure, yeah. So the first qualification that I did in the subject was the British Computing Society, the BA diploma. So I actually, at the very start of my career, in fact, before I even was able to get the job title, along with the coaching that I got from this girl, I also managed to I put a business case together to let them pay for me to do the BA diploma. So I did that. And that really sets you up with all the sort of the technical skills that you need from different perspectives. So I found that really valuable. But I think there's the IIBA do one as well. So there's kind of almost two things you can do.
They're certainly both the most recognised paths, aren't they? It's the IIBA or the BCS, to give you the grounding in the topic. Yeah,
that's it. And there was a particular book. I'll have to find this particular author, that requirements engineering book, and I read her book cover to cover, which was brilliant. And that enthusiasm really helps, because the more skills, the more techniques you learn, the far easier it is to do your job. And I met her years later at a conference, and it was great. When I told her I'd written a book, she did the testimonial for it, which was lovely.
It's funny, it's very familiar on my side. I remember reading a book called Software Requirements. I think Deborah Paul and a few other people had written a book about populated it, and or Business Requirements, I think it was called. And sort of getting that grounding on some familiar techniques was really useful to apply to your role. And I guess taking the example that Soni mentioned earlier, but when you're doing the role, you didn't necessarily know you were doing it at that point. Sometimes if hiring managers can't necessarily tell you about the role, I think it would be helpful to just pass you a book similar to that, to at least explain it to you while you're on your way in the first day.
Yeah.
But Soni, perhaps if I can ask you that similar question in terms of different experience levels.
Yeah, I mean, I recently last year did the IIBA's ECBA certification, and that's my first ever business analysis qualification or certificate that I've ever done. And I had previously been working as a BA, but I just wanted to kind of get the theory under my belt, and I really found it valuable because it was essentially all the work that I was doing, and now I understood like the foundations of why we do it, why we, requirements gathering, elicitation, the difference between the two, and all the other techniques that I was essentially already doing in my role. I think qualifications and training courses, certifications, they're really valuable to just get the foundations. I do think that putting them into practice and getting the experience is just as important. And for someone that wants to get into the business analyst field, they necessarily aren't in it right now, the qualifications could be a great starting point. And from my experience, I was essentially doing SWOT analysis before in marketing, but I didn't necessarily know that that was a BA technique or skill that they were utilizing. So I think doing these kind of entry certificates as well can really benefit you when you are prepping for interviews as a BA. You could kind of link the two. So, okay, I did do a SWOT analysis. Yes, it wasn't for a BA. I wasn't a BA at that time, but it's just adapting what you have now to what you want to do as a BA. But I am looking to work towards more qualifications, maybe more wider into Agile. And I think Agile qualifications, especially if you are working or looking to work in an Agile environment as a business analyst, can be really beneficial, because you will be essentially working with Scrum Masters, dev teams, and it will give you that grounding and understanding of how to best kind of fit into that structure as a business analyst as well.
That's a really, really good point on that, Soni, because I think as well as getting different perspectives on the topic by going through things like Agile as an example, I might have experience of doing software testing exam through BCS as another example, and just having that perspective or doing a project management course as well can give you some awareness of what those other stakeholders that you're going to be engaging with, what they might need from you, so certainly is a way to get a perspective, an easier way, and a way anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think as a BA, in my experience, I've always had to think, what do people need of me? And I still kind of directly ask my peers, I'm like, what do you need from me? Because sometimes you're so in the granular detail, and if you understand how the mechanisms of how an Agile team works, it can really benefit you and your career as a business analyst. So yeah, completely agree with that point, John.
Excellent. And George, it'd be really interesting to get your perspective from a recruitment perspective on how you see the marriage of qualifications and experience to getting opportunities with different roles, really.
I think it's interesting, both the points that Helen and Soni both raised, that that while the qualifications are very good for your application and they do offer real world benefits, I think there's no substitute for just getting stuck in and doing it. Having the experience before you get the qualifications, it is going to really help out. And I don't think not having either the BCS or the IIBA qualification should be a barrier to get in. I have worked with a lot of really good BAs who demonstrate all the soft skills they need, who know the technical side of it really well, but may not specifically have those qualifications, and they do very well in the positions that they come into. I think from my point of view, what hiring managers ask of me quite a lot is for people to have those qualifications, which is obviously, I know, quite counter to what I've just said there, but what I try to do is to educate them to the point I've just made, that a BA skill set is so heavily dependent on soft skills that you might not be able to read that on a piece of paper. So if any junior BAs or somebody starting out in a BA position now looks at their CV and says, oh, it doesn't look like how I want it to, I don't think that should discourage them into going for a promotion or going into that first BA role, because as soon as you get that chance to talk to somebody, you can demonstrate the soft skills that you have. And that is the experience that I really try to look for when I speak to candidates when we're screening for positions. I think out of the two, the BCS is the much more common one that I see on the market. And it is what a lot of the BAs that I speak to do want to get if they haven't already got it. But I do also see quite a lot of complementary qualifications, I think was mentioned before, and that you did a testing qualification. I've seen people with Sigma qualifications, Scrum Master qualifications, PM qualifications as well, and they do use that to inform their roles as BAs, which just goes back to what we were saying before, that all these pathways are interlinked and they do share quite a lot of a skill set that you would see on a CV.
And it's interesting here because it's the opportunities for getting into the role and moving around in the role are as varied as the activities you would do as BA itself. In that, you mentioned a few different ends of the spectrum there. So maybe people with a lot of experience prior in business analysis, they don't necessarily have to have the qualifications. Whereas those coming into the role for the first time, it's just another feather to their bow to allow them to get into business analysis for the first time.
Yeah,
but it's nice
I think
that the person themselves is the biggest qualification someone has, having the right personality.
Yeah, I think a good anecdote that I've got just to show the sort of the last 2 points that we spoke about. I recently have spoken to a candidate who was previously, he was a police officer, and now he's moved into a BA role because he got involved with a few more technical projects while he was working as a duty police officer, and he saw that as something he wanted to do moving forward, and he's took those steps with regards to getting the more experience and getting that BCS qualification. So I think as we're talking about pathways into being a BA, I don't think anything along the lines of experience or qualification should be what holds people back. I think it's just finding the opportunity for yourself or allowing yourself to explore those chances that you do get to become into a business analyst position.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, George, because you see just from that example of talking about the police force, and as you were, I naturally think about Capco's Armed Forces program. We have a lot of people from the Armed Forces coming in to do consulting role, but some of them find themselves doing a BA role as well. And that makes me recognise that there's certainly aspects from almost every job that you can bring to the BA the BA role if you can recognise them and nurture them.
Agree with that completely.
Excellent. So I guess it'd be interesting as well. I mean, sticking with yourself, George, if we can. I mean, to talk about perhaps challenges that you might be aware of in terms of not becoming a BA, but in recruiting and hiring BAs.
I think the challenge of being a BA is also what we spoke about, being the opportunity of a BA, that having lots of soft skill sets that are shared with other positions. It does offer the opportunity to get into being a business analyst, but it is also quite hard to write down on a piece of paper that you're a great stakeholder manager, or you can gather requirements efficiently, or you're a great workshop facilitator. Those things can be put on a CV, but everybody's going to put those on the CV. So it's about how you would demonstrate those things. So having anecdotes or data to back those up are really things that I see as key when I speak to people who are looking into business analyst roles.
Thank you, George. And certainly, I mean, I tend to be able to recognise those things you said when I myself reviewed CVs, and I think it can be quite easy to see, the similar sort of terminology dotted on those CVs. But generally, I think by just looking for the combination of roles and activities that people tend to share on their CV is a good way to get a view of how well-rounded they might be or the level of experience that they might have had. But I wonder, Helen, what would be your perspective on the topic?
Yes, so the days I used to recruit a lot of business analysts, I used to look for a lot of the technical type skills that I'd expect and knowledge of the job. So, for example, do they understand the difference between a functional requirement and a non-functional requirement? How do they differ their approach? How do they capture information? I look for in terms of, do they have any skills? Do they know how to put a context diagram or a use case together? So I've kind of looked for how interested are they actually in doing that type of job? Have they looked at all the different types of techniques and terminology and that require to do that type of job? Because I suppose because I have always been sort of very enthusiastic. So you don't have to have the job title business analyst to be a business analyst, but you need to know some to be able to cope with getting large changes done. So it's sort of how enthusiastic have they been in terms of like learning the craft.
That's it. And it's skills like that enthusiasm, and sometimes the energy and the mental will, sometimes they come together to push things along, because things don't always go swimmingly. You don't always get to speak to the stakeholders you need at your request. So it's persevering and bringing a lot of those qualities and traits with you.
Exactly. Because sometimes I meet people that think, oh, no, we just need someone with domain knowledge. And the trouble I find is that there's a risk with having someone just with domain knowledge, because it's reliant on they'll make assumptions that might not be true, and then you can't really move them down very easily. What if they then, on a subject they don't know, have they then got the skill set to ask the right questions? So for me, it's not about do they have the domain knowledge, it's do they know what questions to ask, how well do they be able to articulate and get information from and write it down.
Yeah, very, very close. I know we'll come to that point in a moment as well. Domains will explore that a little bit further. I'll just let Soni just give her perspective as well on the topic of challenges, I guess, as part of recruiting BAs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I want to take a different stance on it, more of like an organizational stance. So I think that organizations going forward, there's so much changing in multiple industries, and I guess like tech, for example, it's evolving all the time. I think organizations in particular need to ensure that they have a aligned business analysis requirement for this job. I think I've seen multiple times where I've previously applied for roles for a business analyst role, but when we go to the interview stage, it's completely different. It's more PMO, or it's more project management, it's more product owner. And although we've kind of hinted that there are transferable skills, I think organizations need to ensure that they have some sort of standardized business analysis job description, because I think we can start blurring the lines being of a BA and a project manager or a project management analyst, and the business analysis field is predominantly quite new compared to other industries and other roles. So I think to ensure that business analysis is a valued profession and continues to grow as a valued profession, I think organizations need to make sure that they have clearly defined the roles of a business analyst, and that could be a digital BA, a technical BA, etc., etc. I think also organizations, and in particular when recruiting, diversity should be always at the forefront. I think multiple industries kind of have this concern about diversity, equity and inclusion, but I think within the business analysis field, like I've just mentioned, it is such a growing field. Things are changing, and like we've just seen today, like Helen, George, right, there's so many skills that people can offer, and I think organizations and I guess recruitment needs to be open to diverse opinions, diverse thoughts and diverse skill sets. So yeah, a bit of a twist to what George and Helen said, but I think from an organization perspective, it's definitely about kind of honing in on the diverse skill sets that candidates can have, and making sure that business analysis is a valued profession in the organization, because it does bring ultimate value back to the customers, the business and their people.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think perhaps it gives the organisations, when they start to think about that, to give the BAs that are within the organisation already the opportunity to be more involved. So I think there's nothing better than speaking to existing BAs in the organisation to get a feel for the types of activities they're doing currently, the expectations that you have upon them. So that as a hiring manager, if we are actually not looking for a business analyst because we're actually looking for a project manager or PMO or something different, that we can have a clear distinction between the roles of those types of or those different roles effectively. Now we must recognise that sometimes a person can do multiple roles, and that's fine, but we certainly don't want or I don't want as a BA to be hired into a BA role and find that I'm doing planning all of the time. That's for sure.
Yeah, just to add as well, I think if organizations kind of hone in on their BAs, it can help create a good culture for, like you said, John, existing BAs. I know you're kind of big on, you know, the BA community within Capco. I think it's trying to build a community where there's information exchange within the BAs, but there's also knowledge sharing, there's events, and I think it's just learning from others. I think if there is some sort of standardized framework for business analysis within organizations, it will help kind of build and value the profession of business analysis within that organization as well.
Yeah, I would agree, that's for sure. And I mean, just building on the point that Helen went on to a while ago around domains. I mean, it's a question I get asked a lot, really, in terms of, is domain experience or subject matter expertise or business analysis expertise the more important? Which is the most important of those three? Now, I very much have a view that business analysis expertise is the thing that should take priority. And you can learn about the domains from the SMEs, and you can learn about the other subjects from the subject matter experts that are there. But not to deny it's not helpful to know your domain, and it's definitely helpful to know your subject. But having the business analysis skills allows you to learn outside of your current domain and outside of your current subject, I would say. But George, I wondered, perhaps what would be interesting to get your view on the domain versus subject matter expertise versus BA expertise, and how perhaps I guess, you know, have you?
I think it's an interesting question. I think the way it can boil down is between generalism and specialism. I think if you take that as a more broader topic, you see that generalists do tend to can spread themselves across the market a little bit better. They have skill sets and probably a little bit wider experience that can be applied to a lot of things. And I think those people can do very well. And then alternatively, if you look at specialists, they can be very sought after, but their opportunities are limited. And I think that was sort of the point that Helen was mentioning, that if you are too specialist, you may forget those core skill sets of being a BA, where it's more about the questions that you ask to find the answers, as opposed to knowing those answers and trying to rush the stakeholders quickly to that point. And I think from my point of view as a recruiter, I see value in both sides of it. I do see companies that are looking for generalists. They have a broad range of projects that they need a BA to be able to work across, or they have very specific projects or systems or applications that they need a BA to touch on. So I think it's down to individual preference of somebody there to be to consider what they want to do, whether it is specialize in a specific ERP, for example. They can do very well in that point, but it may not be as transferable as somebody who is working on systems that are a little bit more commercial or widespread in the industry.
And Soni, I wonder what your view might be on domain subject matter expertise, BA expertise.
Yeah, I think from my personal experience, I've moved from financial services. I've been in there for just over 2 years, and now I'm in telecoms, but it's more network tech specific. So I've shifted around quite a bit in terms of the industry, and obviously right now I'm still picking up the domain knowledge. And in my experience, it's always come down to my skill set rather than how much I know about a domain. I do think these skills can be learnt, and I do think there's still a lot of people that have been in these kind of industries, domains for a really long time that are still learning. I think domains are always evolving, so there will be growth and learning opportunities all the time. That being said, I think domain knowledge is really, really valuable. I think being an expertise or SME or having that knowledge of a certain industry, such as banking or network development, can really help you better engage with stakeholders, especially when it goes down into the granular detail. I think when you're starting out as a business analyst, I think if you're set on a specialist career, then go down that route, but really be open to learning different domains, industries, and like George said, being more general can help you in the start of your BA career, and then maybe later down the line you can really explore, okay, I think I've really enjoyed the banking industry a bit more, and I've acquired a lot more knowledge in ESG or something particular. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of emphasis and pressure on early career business analysts to be specialists and have industry knowledge, but I strongly believe that it can be developed, and it's definitely skill set in my eyes rather than domain knowledge.
Yeah, and I think having that domain knowledge or subject knowledge as well is nice to have in your back pocket, so that you can ask the questions to get into more detail should you need to. Should that detail not be forthcoming in the first place. But certainly positive to hear that there's lots of opportunities for people to specialise or to stay in their specialism or to move across domains and really just take a path that suits them. Now I'm conscious, Helen, you touched on the topic of domain, but we've not specifically asked you about it. So is there anything further you might want to add on domain or subject matter expertise?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's a bit of education, because sometimes there's a perception that it has to be domain knowledge. So sometimes there's a bit of education in terms of, actually you don't have to have domain knowledge or deep expertise in it because of the type of questions and techniques that there are. So for example, in the past, I've been able to use, so for example, I had to talk to loads of actuaries, which are very, very specialist knowledge, lots of very specialist terminology. But I knew there's like techniques around using like data diagrams, so you can put like data in and then go, right, how does that data relate to that? And then you can start picking up where people are using multiple terminology to mean the same thing, and then you can work out how they relate to each other. So if I hadn't had that like experience of knowing that technique, that would have been really difficult, because they spend years and years studying to be actuaries. You can't possibly learn that amount of like detail. You have to have the techniques to support it, and it's only then that they kind of realize, oh, I can see why it's confusing now. We do keep changing the terminology, but they don't realize they're doing it. So you have to kind of be able to like help them understand as well what you understood and what you don't.
That's it. And what you demonstrated there is that importance of whether you have the detailed knowledge or the subject knowledge or the domain knowledge, even if you think you know about the details of business analysis, it's important to be able to take a step back from time to time and actually just ask those innocent questions that don't assume that you know everything up front, and get the honest and open answer really from the stakeholders you're engaging with.
Yeah, because especially when there's different stakeholders, you need to get everyone to agree the same terminology. Otherwise, that just leads to loads of ambiguity.
That's it, absolutely. And I guess the next question I have on the list, and we're getting to the end, I'm pleased to know, but is really around advice that you might have for those either looking to get into a BA career or perhaps early in their BA career and about to move on into other roles within business analysis. So perhaps, Soni, I'll start with you if I can on that one.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. I think there's so much out there, and sometimes it can be really hard to even know where to start. I would really advise the first step. There's a BCS or there's IIBA. That from my personal experience, IIBA hosts numerous events over the year. They have weekly brown bag sessions, and these sessions are free. And I believe that every Friday or Thursday they change. They're 1-hour sessions, and there's no real set agenda. You get to meet so many different business analysts in different industries. They've been a business analyst for X amount of years, or they're brand new, and these are great kind of networking opportunities. I've met some really fantastic business analysts just through attending brown bags. I think I started off not inputting much, just being a passive listener, and it's really boosted my confidence in now actively speaking, contributing, and I think you can learn so much more from people. I know we've touched on experience through certificates and theory, but I think learning from people is always the best, and you can build some really valuable connections. And just to add on that is LinkedIn. I'm a huge advocate, obviously I have my background in marketing, but I do think there's such value in LinkedIn. There's content creators. John, I know you know, share regular business analysis content on there. And I think it's just having access to all these kind of people who are in the field right now and learning from them, as well as kind of contributing to the field of business analysis. LinkedIn have a new feature now where you can contribute to articles, and these are really fantastic ways to start picking up kind of skills and start learning kind of key skills that could contribute to your business analysis career. So in my experience, it's always been networking. And I think regardless of whatever career, to be honest, you go into, networking and learning from others can really put you at the forefront when you are applying for different roles as a business analyst.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Helen, I wonder if you had any points around how BAs can prepare for interviews or prepare for a role in business analysis.
I agree with Soni. There are lots and lots of IIBA. I used to chair the Midlands chapter, so they have lots of regular events, and you can even persuade your, might be able to persuade your company, because it's like free for companies to host it, and you can pick whatever topic you want. So that's quite good, because then you can if your company's hosting it, you can go along, you can learn, you can help maybe have a say in terms of what topics or what type of speakers you want to talk there. So I think it's all about working out networking, finding out who's already doing the type of job that you want to do, finding out how you can help. Quite often, one of the things I learned very on in my career, if you volunteer to do something, people don't tend to say no. They're quite grateful. So it's sort of like you can always, find somebody that's doing the type of job you want and say, is there a way I can help you at all? And then getting feedback on that and building on that, so people know that that's what you want to go to. I think if you want to get into it and you're already in a workplace, that you should let your manager know, because they can then give you guidance as well and support in terms of who you can talk to find out. There's just so much material out there now.
I think that's an excellent first step that you called out, though. I mean, just making people aware of it can take the burden off yourself to try and find the roles and the connections that might be difficult for you to identify on your own. Whereas if you make people aware, either through open channels such as LinkedIn, or to your employer or potential employers or colleagues when you're doing different roles, then that just improves the opportunity for them to keep their eye out or ear out if there's a role coming up. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent advice. And George, do you have any advice for BAs or potential BAs for preparing for interviews and getting over the lines of it?
Yeah, I think I want to twist the question a little bit and get advice for people who are trying to get interviews. So people who do want to get their first foot in the door with whether it's a new BA role or it's into a new company. And I think for myself, one of the key points I speak to candidates about regularly is persistence. So if you see an advert and you can see a hiring manager's contact details on there, I wouldn't be afraid to, after you've sent your application through, send them an email, say, hi, I'm George, I'm really interested in this role. Here's how I see I might be suitable for it. Love to hear some feedback from you. Or typically as well, you can do that with recruiters. If you don't hear something back in a couple of days, give them a call, send them an email, chase them up. I think the persistence of it is just getting your name back to the top of the list or to the forefront of someone's mind every opportunity you've got. I think that's one of the key parts of it. And then if you do manage to secure that interview, I would really have a think about the skills that you want to show in that interview. So read through the job description again, see which points that they've picked out that are key for them. Have a few anecdotes, a few bits of data that can back up your point, back up how you're suitable for those parts of the job description, and then post the interview as well. Be persistent, ask for feedback. Bless you. Because if you don't manage to secure that role, you're going to learn for next time. And then obviously, if you don't manage to get that, it's the confidence to get back up, go for another interview, keep learning, and keep just sort of knocking on the door until someone lets you in.
Yeah, excellent advice, George. Thank you. And Soni, perhaps from your perspective.
Yeah, I think what Helen and George have just said is literally the key to, you know, nailing kind of interviews as well. I think as a business analyst, when you eventually get that role, you have to be very proactive. So if you can show that you're very proactive before you even land a role, it can really put you 10 steps ahead. And sometimes in business analysts recruitment process, maybe George has experience in this, but I've had to present or analyze a little activity, and I remember my first kind of when I went into consulting, I had to do more like assessment center, and then when I was applying for my second gig, I was still having to present and analyze data. And I do think as a candidate, you can get frustrated that these processes are very lengthy. Why are they asking me to do a whole exercise? I just want the job. The whole kind of value behind having these little activities is really, really important, because this is where you can really show the recruiter, the hiring managers, you and your soft skills. I think George mentioned earlier, it's hard to pinpoint your soft skills on a CV, but when you do have an interview or assessment center or a interview with an activity, this is the time where you can really present yourself as well as your skill set. So I've previously had to do process maps. I've had to make technique SWOT analysis as part of a interview process, and I think candidates do get quite overwhelmed by that. However, just think about the purpose and how you can really portray yourself. At the end of the day, they're not trying to trick you out. They are trying to see if you are the best fit for that role.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the advice I would put on top of that as well is that I think you're going into interview opportunities, and I think it still applies to the point George made about reaching out to recruiters as well, is, you know, try and give yourself as much opportunity to tell the story you want to tell. You know, so if you've got particular strengths or experience or capability, or you're just really enthusiastic about a particular area, make sure you give yourself the opportunity to talk about it. Now, you might not get a question that will immediately relate to it in an interview, but you will normally get a chance to, you know, add any final points or ask any questions. So don't be afraid that isn't just a point for questions. You can use that time as well to bring up other aspects of your ability or your what you're looking for that haven't been discussed. You know, certainly a shame to leave anything not said as you exit the interview, I would say.
I just want to touch on a point that Soni made there. If you do go through a process that is requiring things like assessments or presenting something beforehand, I would recommend asking the recruiter whether they've had anybody do this process recently, because they will have got feedback from a hiring manager saying, this is the points that we want to see, this is the points that a candidate maybe didn't hit, and this is the points that a candidate impressed in. You can use that to your advantage, just the same way that you would if you were doing a process within a company. I think it's very rare that you'd ever go into something that's completely brand new and nobody knows what they're looking for, and it's a success factor. So I think using those skills as well within the interview are going to be things that can set you apart.
That's it. That's an excellent example of the BA role is asking questions. So you certainly shouldn't ignore that very key skill prior to landing the job as well. Just as we draw to a close, I mean, it'd be good just as well just to get any final thoughts from you on the topic of career pathways. And Helen, have you got any points you might like to raise that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the sort of the stuff that we've already covered, really. I mean, conferences, there's quite a few conferences that if you can go to those, that's a really good way of meeting people and wide variety of topics. Yeah, so just a lot of information out there, and just finding out what you can and shadowing. I mean, even if you've not even been able to get into doing business analysis yet, if you can get involved in projects, then that will help you anyway.
Yeah, excellent advice. And Soni, any advice from yourself or final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think just be confident in yourself. I think no matter what job you're trying to get into your career, confidence is such a big thing. No one started out as a BA, no one was born a BA. Lots of people have grown as business analysts. And I think also business analysts need to encourage and really like shout about kind of the career pathways into BAs. I work with a lot of university students, and I help with mentoring, and no one knows what a business analyst is because there's no kind of business analyst degree or etc. There's business management, but a lot of people think that's more management roles. I think that current business analysts need to more like increase their knowledge, their voice, and really get people on board with what a BA does from early stages. I think it's such a valuable profession, and I think anyone can really get into it. It's not a linear career pathway, and like Helen and George have mentioned, and yourself, John, it's very open and diverse. And yeah, just keep trying, and I'm sure you'll get there.
That's it. And George, any final points from you?
Well, I think we've covered quite a lot of the stuff in our chat today, and I think something that somebody's just touched on there is that you're only going to get there if you put yourself out for it. So I think you don't get lucky into a job of being a BA. You work your way into it. You start by starting. So either get the experience that you'd like, or ask somebody for advice on how to get into it, and just don't sit quietly and hope a BA role comes to you. If you do want a position as a business analyst, they are out there, and you've got to be proactive.
Excellent. That feels like a great place to end, or almost. I think my final thoughts on the topic are really how grateful I am that the three of you were able to join and share loads of useful information that I'm sure will be useful to many. So thank you again for joining, and I look forward to speaking to the three of you, if not collectively, at least individually at some point in the near future. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us, John.